Digital media company Ozy Media is currently embroiled in a bit of a scandal, embarrassing revelations about their true numbers and their following and all kinds of solvency within their company. And this is based off of some new, honestly, some things that came forward about a call back in February where they had an investment meeting with Goldman Sachs for about $40 million to invest in the company to continue their progression. Now, that call, like I said, happened back in February, but now it's coming to light, and it's so embarrassing. Things that came from it are threatening for them just even being around anymore now. So let's get into some of the details that the New York Times reported that blew the lid off of this whole thing. So in that meeting where they were trying to prove how great things are with Goldman Sachs, the scheduled participants included Alex Piper, the head of unscripted programming for YouTube Originals. He was running late. I should have put quotes there, but this is from the New York Times. Quote unquote, I'll say, he was running late and apologized to the Goldman Sachs team, saying he'd had trouble logging onto Zoom, and he suggested that the meeting be moved to a conference call. No faces. No faces, think about that. Once everyone had made the switch to an old-fashioned conference call, the guests told the bankers what they had been wanting to hear, that Ozy was a great success on YouTube, racking up significant views and ad dollars. And then Mr. Watson, Carlos Watson, who's the CEO of the company and co-founder, was as good a leader as he seemed to be. As he spoke, however, the man's voice began to sound strange to the Goldman Sachs team, as though it might have been digitally altered, is what 4 people said about that. So afterwards, okay, so the Goldman Sachs folks and someone there, I was like, this sounds a little weird. Does this sound like Alex to you? So they independently reached out to Alex Piper to find out exactly how he felt, what was going on. And when they did that, the New York Times continued on. A confused Mr. Piper told the Goldman Sachs investor that he had never spoken with her before. Someone else, it seemed, had been playing the part of Mr. Piper on that call with Ozy Media. So when the YouTube learned about this, that someone had apparently impersonated one of their executives at a business meeting, its security team started this investigation, and the company confirmed that to Ben Smith, who was writing this for the New York Times. The inquiry didn't get far before a name had emerged. So within days, Mr. Watson had apologized profusely to Goldman Sachs, saying that the voice on the call belonged to Samir Rao, who's the co-founder and chief operating officer at Ozy. So one more part of this before, but I want to just, in case people are not understanding what's happening. They were supposed to have a Zoom meeting where everyone's face is up in a call for $40 million from Goldman Sachs. The guy that was supposed to be there, Alex Piper, who was speaking so well of Ozy Media from YouTube as an executive, had a weird voice, some kind of a change to his voice. So the folks at Goldman Sachs were like, who's this guy? And they reached out to Alex and found that it wasn't Alex. So now, after the lid was blown off, Carlos Watson had apologized for it. Now, there's a little bit more of an explanation as to what was going on from Watson. So in his apologies to Goldman Sachs and in an email on Friday, also to Ben Smith, Watson attributed the incident to a mental health crisis and shared what he said were details of Mr. Rao's diagnosis. Samir is a valued colleague and a close friend. I'm proud that we stood by him while he struggled, and we're all glad to see him now thriving again. He added that Mr. Rao took time off from work after the call and is now back at Ozy. And Mr. Rao did not reply to request on this to comment on this story. Man, does this happen all the time? I mean, you're in this realm.
Okay, so I am. That leads to a couple of biases that I want to tell you about before I give you my opinion and the rest of the story. So I have 2 biases that go in opposite directions here. One, I've met and talked to Carlos Watson several times in person. He's a lovely guy, very amiable.
Really does seem like a good guy.
Yeah, very nice. No one who's ever met him doesn't think he's nice, okay? Now, there's a story I read about how at work, it's not the same. Okay, it is what it is, but I don't know that version of Carlos. I know that the version, that's a very nice person, okay. Now, my bias in the opposite direction is, look, I'm tired of people cheating. We don't cheat, our numbers are real, and people are constantly lying about their numbers in this industry, and it hurts us because then people don't believe us when we tell them real numbers. And so that's deeply, deeply frustrating. So now let me give you the rest of the story. So first of all, let's think this one through, okay? And I'm just gonna keep it real, it is what it is, that's what I do for a living, okay? So you had a call scheduled with a YouTube executive, but you know you don't actually have a relationship with that YouTube executive. Then your co-founder calls in because he's having a mental health issue. Well, who put it on the schedule? Because that person apparently is also having a mental health issue. You knew that was part of the schedule, but you must know that you don't have a contract with YouTube. So then when you come back and tell us it's a mental health issue, I gotta ask, is it? And then you tell us, oh no, he's back in 2 weeks because now his mental health is A-okay.
Is that how it works?
Is that how it works? I don't know, right? So, okay, but if it was just that, you'd say, man, I don't know, maybe Samir didn't tell the others at Ozy, none of the other executives, and he pulled this off on his own. And my God, he because of stress, blah, blah, blah. Could be, unlikely if you ask me, for the reasons I just stated, but okay. But it's not just that. Then every story after that exposing, well, their numbers weren't exactly what they claimed. They're the quotes praising them from all these different media outlets. Turns out it was their own press releases. And when people quoted their press release, they pretended that the paper had said it, okay? My God, if we did that, we'd be shredded on any one of these infractions, any one, and there's like now dozens, okay? And why would we be shredded but Ozy wouldn't? Can I keep it real about that too? Answer my own question, yes. It's because they have other powerful people that were connected to them. Hillary Clinton gave speeches at Ozy Fest, John Legend. And I'm not blaming those folks. They don't know the internal dealings, right? But a lot of people go to the famous and powerful people went to their things. They had the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks as the chairman of their board. They have fancy people. And fancy people don't get questioned. We're outsiders. We get questioned 2,000 times over. And when we say things that are true, we're like, oh yeah, right. Well, but there's no famous and powerful people around you, right? You put like 2 famous people next to you, they're like, oh, I don't need to see any of your numbers. Oh, that's it, where do you know how much Ozy raised? I don't, but public reports are anywhere between 83 to 153 million dollars. Okay, and then so all these stories come out, and then one after another about all these different things that were not factual that they did. So on Friday, they go, okay, we're done. Ozy's shutting down and everyone's fired. Okay, you know what just happened? Right before we went on air? They did a tweet saying, yes, we're back. Are you? So what are you back to? So Carlos went on.
He went on today's show. Let's listen really fast to what he said, because I was very interested in the explanation as to how this switched back so quickly. So let's listen to that.
Reports that the company shut down on Friday. Is that true? Is the company shut down, or are you still open for business?
We're going to open for business. So we're making news today. This is our Lazarus moment, if you will. This is our Tylenol moment. Last week was traumatic. It was difficult, heartbreaking in many ways. And at the end of the week, we did suspend operations with a plan to wind down. But as we spent time over the weekend, we talked to advertising partners. We talked to some of our readers, some of our viewers, our listeners, our investors. I think Ozy's is part of this moment, and it's not going to be easy. But I think what we do with newsletters, what we do with TV shows, original TV shows, podcasts, and more, I think has a place.
Okay, so really fast, Cenk, because I'm really curious about your thoughts, and I know we don't have a lot of time. But you know what? I'm big on, if somebody's going to take your money, if you're willing to give it to them, take it. Now, there's a lot of fake it till you make it, and it's really frustrating for the real folks, right? That's where the one problem comes in. But if Goldman Sachs wants to give away their money to someone who's not really doing what they're doing, now after they find that out, and then now Ozy Media has this comeback that he's saying they're gonna do, and people actually go back giving them money, bro. I have no more dogs in this fight. You found out, you know, if you want to invest in it, that's not my money, that's your money.
Yeah, no. Look,
now that we know.
Yeah. So people love beating up on Ozy, and we just told you what the reality is. But understand, it's not just about Ozy. Look, a lot of companies in this industry go around pretending that they have an audience when they don't have an audience. And well, how do they get all that money in the first place? Fancy people love to give to fancy people. Okay, that's the investors, right? And by the way, why are they quote unquote back in business? Because I guarantee you some of their investors yelled at them and said, get some shareholder value. We gave you 80 or 150 million dollars, right? Where is it? At least get me back to 2, 10, 20, get me something. Open up your doors and figure out a way to rescue some of our money. And by the way, I don't blame them. Right? And so now they're panicked and trying to come back. And he says Ozy's part of this moment. Is it? Like, so do you know anyone who's ever watched Ozy or commented about Ozy? And so, and again, I'm not trying to pick on him. Everybody's piling on. My point is, I've seen other companies that are very much in the news today still, right? That pretend to have an audience about that is so progressive and they understand young people. So how can you tell who's full of crap and who isn't? If you see someone doing a show that doesn't have any interesting opinions, they don't have an audience. Okay, advertisers, get it through your thick skulls. People want an interesting show. They don't want a dull show where Hillary Clinton comes on and they high five each other and they go, oh my God, isn't the status quo awesome? Yes, the status quo is awesome. Yes, all of our advertisers are super happy about the status quo being awesome, right? That is not a real show and no one watches it. Again, not about Ozy. You find any show where they're telling you basically a benign BS and it's not real. Okay, we have a gigantic audience. Why? Because we do a real show and we tell you when Hillary Clinton sucks. We tell you when Hillary Clinton does something good. It happens from time to time, okay? And we love Bernie Sanders. We criticize Bernie Sanders, okay? And we take a lot of heat. We take heat from the establishment. We take heat from the right wing. We take heat from the left wing. And advertisers hate us. They go, oh my God, that's interesting. You're having a real conversation. And investors are like, oh, that's not brand safe. We're not brand safe because we actually appeal to human beings. But if you don't appeal to human beings, then you're brand safe and all those corporations will give you millions upon millions upon millions of dollars.
Influence.
So that's how you know, but they're never gonna learn. And a lot of the advertisers, a lot of investors are gonna lose a lot of money. And then a lot of the advertisers are gonna start to go out of business because they're like, why won't they buy things that are brand safe? We told them we couldn't make up our mind about gay rights. Should you have rights if you're gay or should you not? I couldn't make up my mind because I'm brand safe. You're not brand safe, okay? Here, this is a real show. If you're against gay rights, you're a terrible person. Would Ozy have ever said that? No, they would have generically be in favor of LGBTQ rights, but they would have never taken a Republican or worse yet, a Democrat to the woodshed and said, that some bitch voted against you. Because that's not brand safe. And so that's why they never have an audience and they're never gonna have an audience and they're not gonna be back. It's not about Ozy, it's about all of them that do that brand safe BS that no one is interested in. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.